for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to the second part of the video update. Here with me today, Polona, Aurea, and I will be talking further about the 8-8 gateway and what it means for us, not just as in this year, because as we know, this Lion's Gate is a huge portal, especially for star-seeded beings and illumined light beings that are very, very rare on this planet at this time. As I've talked about this before, many have left. It's like the last standing remaining few is the words I've been getting in this last few months, and we are still persisting. And I feel like we are the ones that are pulling this experiment of Illumined Union further. And as you know, 8-8 gateway also, in relation to what many talk about, this union and coming into union with divine masculine and feminine counterparts is very important. And of course, due to its infinite nature, it aligns specifically through the stellar codes we receive every year. But that doesn't mean that every union will be different, will be the same. They will all be different, and I'll be talking about this towards the last part of today's video. I first want to remind you before I forget, because I will forget, because I always have so much to talk about, that somehow in the splurge of the moment, besides everything that went wrong in our life, my phone finally died, and I was actually left without a phone for a few weeks. And finally, I got a new phone, which is basically an old phone, because I am the girl all about recycling. So I bought a used new phone, or used new phone, you know, either way. And I finally have a phone, and some of the apps that have stopped working before work again. And so I got myself Instagram account again. I won't be sharing much until, you know, my retreat, which will be after the 8-8 gateway this year, which is now, of course. And I want to say you can find me. Well, the link will be also shared down below, but you can just easily find me under the name, which is my name, Polona Aurea on Instagram. So those of you who've been following me before, it will still be a personal closed account, because, you know, I've received a lot of harassment and violation in my poor human life, and I would like to keep it so. I would like the situation to remain as such that this will be a private account. Okay, so get the link. If you don't know, just type it in, Polona Aurea, and I'll see you on Instagram. Okay, it will be more about the essence of my inner child, you know, that just lives this life in purity and likes to share things of such nature. So moving on to today's topic, the magnificent thing about this Lion's Gate is that it aligns perfectly with the new moon in Leo, which is, in a way, you know, it's also my Venus and Mars signs are in Leo, but according to Vedic astrology, moving my sun sign back, I am a Leo, and I do actually resonate more with the nature of Leo and its royal qualities than with Virgo, which is more like my internal self and the nature of my purity. So all of these aspects align with us depending on how we look at them. But this year, there is almost like a completion of a major cycle, and I want to talk about this today and how this portal actually aligns us with the urgent timeline shift for our ascension. The previous video that I've talked about and I've shared with all of you had reached a number of views that I haven't, you know, experienced myself on my humble human journey since I started developing this inner Christ embodiment and mastery after, you know, just such struggle in my life. And my views have been dropping and dropping since. So this last video about the urgent spirit message has reached a lot of views, which for me was kind of fantastic. Still, as you know, that doesn't mean a thing. Like for me, it doesn't mean it's not about the outside nature of things. You know, when you look about the nature of things in our realm, you will see millions and millions of views and people who are doing oracles and reading energy for you, or people showing up every year, every month doing a yearly update or a monthly update telling you what energies are about and how energies are like and how you can use them in your life. No one tells you, no one teaches you how to master your own energy assessment and how you can level up through your own energetic life force mastery. It's basically someone telling you how the energy will be, and you need them as an intermediary to transfer that information onto your own personal life, which for me is hocus pocus, is bogus. You have to know there are so many people making money off of these things and telling you they can read energy for you, they can do readings for you, they can do whatever. You know, it's nice that we all show that we have gifts in reading energy, but every one of us in what we call the new self or the new era or whatever, you know, you might call it to be, the new human relating to the fifth density experience that is from within to without. We all need to understand the heart mastery of how we decipher energy through our inner template of the new human, which is no longer based on outside accessing information. But that's just one thing I want to talk about today. That's such a tiny, tiny amount of something I've been talking about for years. But somehow we managed to get to a point where so few people are actually understanding the very nature of Christ, what it means, how to live in alignment with divine law, and knowing that it doesn't matter what you're told and how the energy is, has nothing to do with you living through the nature of applying divine law in your life by inner sovereignty according to the principles of source. You know, the true nature of love, wisdom, power, these are not just mere words, as you often hear me say. So I will start at the beginning, which is, why is this video called The Urgent Timeline Shift for Ascension? As you know, ascension is still in this realm on earth, it's still an experiment. When we talk about the collective nature of shifting energies or moving energies, so you can have a reader telling you the collective is moving here and there, this is the collective masculine and feminine, this is where they're headed, this is where we're headed, and it's not really the truth, because if you're not embodying anything of that and you're not living in accordance to the first three principles of God, right? Love, wisdom, power, the sovereignty of the inner truth and the truth of God, living in living motion and living embodiment through you. If you live through lower essences, which basically become distorted and become human qualities that become energies that, you know, energy work through them is distorted once you no longer are applying yourself through these divine laws that are the laws of the Mother, Father, and the Child, the Holy Trinity. These are, again, not just words, and they're not religious at all. That's the basic fundamental principle in the nature of life and all living sustenance through which organic fusion of life moves through the multiverse. So in the fall of the consciousness, which we call the collective consciousness of Earth, we're noticing still so many fragmented energetics and distortions, which are keeping the minds of the humans in what we call the status quo, the non-moving, the cyclical energy, right? Even astrology and charts are being read as a circle, right? We have a circle that tells us how we are, our opportunities, you know, how we can move energy, how we, you know, sorry, I got stuck here. Oh, goodness. I have to untie myself because I got hooked in a towel here. So there you go. Well, now it drops. It's just a bracelet. That's my lucky charm, and I wanted to wear it today. It's basically all the elements of the dancing. Different dancers, right, all around the world, different cultures, and I bought it for myself when I actually stopped dancing because of this transgression. Oh no, I ruined my towel though. It is what it is. You gotta live on. I ruined many things. Many things in my life were ruined, and still, it's not all spick and span, but life goes on. So what I want to talk about today is how, and again, sorry for the interruption, you know, life happens. This whole experiment of what we call ascension has been delayed, is what we call the collective, is because there was no such thing that we call the collective. There was not enough souls. There were not enough souls moving through what we call the collective field that that went through the opening that is the true gates of illumination. As I've shared before, very, very few souls have actually been doing the work, have been accepting this truth of their illumined self as the ultimate truth. Like, there is no thing that's beyond it, right? That's literally the ultimate. And there were too few to actually also contribute to the collective opening that light beings are actually performing through divine grace and these divine dispensation laws that are offered as a gift to humanity. But humanity has to have this reciprocal nature to the way they are ready and willing to receive that, again by themselves embodying the qualities of what we call as above so below. And because there was not enough life quotient, it became more and more difficult for light beings also to operate here on this planet. And for me, how this escalated in the year 2019, I already shared, transgression happened in the early fall months and started really moving and progressing very rapidly through that winter. And then, I experienced these almost like 2 years of darkness and trying to rise my life force again, and not just survive, but to become a being that's an illumined being and starting to thrive. That was the video portion that I've shared with you yesterday. But it was also interesting and very memorable to share with you that my mother and I haven't really had many dreams that were kind of like vivid dreams that are messaging type of dreams. But she recently had a feeling kind of dream, and she was getting the guidance from the home family that Aurea now, after all that she's been through in this human embodiment, she now is not just the queen in spirit, she also became the queen of earth. Like me, my physical human embodiment of her essence, as Polona Aurea, I now can literally, I'm justified to carry that. And it's not a title, it's an essence, right? Because as illumined light beings, we're not self-entitled beings. God gives us these almost like rewards, and these are not promotions that tell you now you can do your job better, because the job was already performed perfectly. The thing is that now the human self has the benefits of getting that reciprocity directly delivered by God and through God, herself, himself, itself, as an ultimate sovereign force of life. But in that nature, right, which happened as the events escalated since 2019, when we started bringing the essence of Pulsar through the Arcturian light family and these Aureus, this group of Illumined Arcturians, as I've shared with you, these amazing light beings, we had this goal to bring this Pulsar and its consciousness of dispensating the heavy, dense, dark particles that have been too imbued to enmeshed in the human, not just psyche, but very much psyche, because the mind is so programmed here in this realm, but also in the body. And the problem with most people who are now either totally asleep or within this passageway, what we call the new age, which keeps them locked in many, many programs that look to be spiritual but are truly not. They're keeping them a slave in that mode, and in a way that it's kind of covered through what we call the fake spiritual persona, and underneath is still lots of rotten energy that hasn't really been liberated, and that soul hasn't truly embodied the principles of divine Trinity, and its own sacred flame and fire hasn't really become brightened by this inner self illumination process. Okay. And so because of that, like I said, the collective wasn't supporting that enough. It was also more difficult for us to function here. So we didn't have enough bedding, right? Enough groundwork, enough layering, enough support. So that also carried us, and that kind of caused my human body to fall so much, because the collective energy did not support this equally enough. And it was difficult, and still Aurea persisted, even though there's so few beings who actually were ready and willing to support back. And I'm not talking just about the consciously aware humanoids, right? I'm talking about also the souls that became more and more fragmented along the process of Lucifer's fragmentation itself, okay? And her fragmentation was also, in a way, as I've already explained, a downfall or a cause, an original cause for the fragmentation of so many souls that follow that path instead of following the true original light. So we came here to create this pulsar dynamic to kind of disperse these heavy charged particles that were a part of the embedding that occurs through the matrix when a soul receives an inception, instead of receiving its illumination, right? And reading itself and its information through the divine prism of life. Instead, we have the divine, right? It's not divine anymore, but it's a prison, right? With an N instead of an M. So this caused many, many souls to become heavily, heavily burdened. And we're still feeling how this split is occurring within so many of us, that there are souls who are doing the work and there are souls who are not doing any work. They're too much in fear. They're too stuck in the status quo. They're too much stuck in materialistic needs and materialism in itself, getting their persona validated. They're having this inauthentic, false persona kind of living. They're portraying an image of themselves, but it's not who they truly are. And because of that, their soul suffers because it cannot come through that body. And it's all kind of, you need to understand there's an intermediary, enmeshed experience. You need the right proportion of the desire from the humanoid kind for the illumined light beings to bring about that divine dispensation of light. And it wasn't enough. So that's why actually my body also has fallen at that point. Well, the consciousness never fell, but the body has fallen into the abyss, and very, very heavy loss of life force and physical threatened life and livelihood in my own kind. It was difficult for me, even in terms of monetary gains and things like that, which before I'd never had a problem with because I was just moving and progressing through the spiral of spirit. But then this downfall happened, and what happened. And because of that, there was a tremendous delay. Remember when I shared a video about the splitting that has begun, it was actually a good thing because that split in itself indicated the delay is starting to no longer be as prominent. The delays are being over, but there's still lots and lots of delays, which we can feel. Those of you who are moving into union and you're having a partner or a counterpart and you're feeling there's still heaviness and difficulty, and you still can find that resolve. And a lot of us also, we have been picking up original light family members of the soul tribe, and we haven't been basically successful in bringing them upwards because of what we know as free will, and they haven't been willing to do the work. They were either too lazy, too afraid, or too egoic, which means stubborn and defensive, which all of these qualities keep you in a locked-in state. So also a few months ago, I shared a video about the period of grace, which is a divine intervention in providing some of these souls who still, haven't moved forward and have been in a way stuck, that God would still come and offer them this final offering, kind of hand in hand. And it's interesting thing because just as I was moving into this and trying to find some guidance and calling, I saw a video from someone who also spoke about the twin collective and these counterparts coming together, and how if some of them cannot come together at this point, at this time, they will be, if they cannot come together, they will be split apart again for many, many, many lifetimes, which are very numerous. And I'm not going to give a number, but it's just a channeling that didn't come from me directly. But it's interesting to know that somehow I came across that information because it's similar to the information I was receiving myself. And those of us who are illumined light beings, we have been feeling worry and stress and frustration over some of these counterparts that really haven't been going with the motion of change, with the motion of illumination, and still have been trying to preserve their last remnants of what they call their earthly life and their earthiness, instead of just letting go and trusting God. Because the only thing that God wants from you is for you to trust God completely. That's the first step of your embracing your divinehood, right? Your livelihood as source expression, fundamentally and personally, right, uniquely as well as an individualized source being. Second part then is reclaiming your sovereignty, right? And then the third part is then through all these qualities expressed as love, wisdom, and power, serving God through your ultimate devotion. And that's the level of your illumined self, is when you're going to be asked to be in total acceptance of service. So not just trusting God for yourself, but trusting God in a bigger picture vision, right? This bigger vista that includes many, many souls as well. And this is what light beings are doing. They're in charge of many, many souls in distributing the amount of grace and support, but the willingness has to come individually from that particular soul. If the will does not come, and the free will is tending towards the other direction, it's going to spill over in the next segment, which is as I've been explained and shown now, it's very difficult because this gateway, it's almost like that expression, that gateway that will seal the deal, that will lock in that final decision for those that have been chosen to move through at this time, but they've experienced a personal delay as well due to heavy karmic overload, as well as dark magic and transgression received in multiple ways and multiple reasons and how it can happen. And for soul to experience it at any type of level, if at any point you're still taking life for granted and you're only living for yourself, even if you're prosperous, even if you're abundant, but that's all you see is yourself and your own life, you're still not a Christ being. You have to understand that. You really have to understand that fifth density is not self-egoic density anymore. And when people talk about moving into this fifth dimension from the third dimension, it's not about dimensionality at all. It's about moving densities, okay? And eventually when the densities lock into a specific point of nullification, what used to be, right, what we call the dimensional space experience at this time, the density of that no longer can cover or can be covered in this dimensional space. And that's why the dimension in itself changes as well. These are very heavy principles because not everyone understands the differences between dimensions and densities. But all you have to know is for you to shift density, for you to no longer be in third density, you have to be fully in fifth density, not somewhere in between, which is where most of us are right now. Whether due to the nature of transgression and this delay that's been happening collectively, not just for myself personally, but it always starts at the highest ranking point. Everything starts at spirit first, right? If there's a blockage in the realm of the angelics and spirits first, and there's lots of war and things happening and lots of chaos, and then it gradually descends and becomes expressed in the human form, what we call this life and this density. So when people say, well, we're going to be on earth and we're going to be fully fifth density, then you don't understand that once you're fully fifth density, you're no longer a part of third density. So everyone now who hasn't fully ascended yet, which is all of us, because as you can see, we still have these bodies, we still are kind of in between. That's the shifting period. It's been ongoing. The shifting period has been ongoing. But the decisions to move forward have not been made by all the souls. And me explaining this, right, through this energy of the new moon in Leo and the Stargate, which we call the gate of the Lion's Gate, which is aligned with the Sirius Gate, and the Sirius is directly linked to not just the Sirius Gate, but this is our closest proximity, which we call the Sirius twin star, which also includes our planet, but we're also part of the Palladian star system, but at a bigger version that's a trinity that also locks in with the Arcturian triangle, right? So even now in the summer, in the hemisphere of the sky, when you look up at night, you see the stars. Arcturus is very prominent in the sky, and for me, that kind of is the deal breaker for how I move through and the epiphanies and the understandings that are being clarified for me in the summer months in relation to winter months that for me are very much focused on being asleep, being dormant, and waiting for that progression, right? So what's been shown to me is that this final sealing the deal and this final decision hasn't really been shown to us, even if we're connecting to these counterparts and these souls and we love them very much. The vision won't be shown to us because even us who are moving them forward or helping them and helping with their extension, extending our hands and reaching out, if they don't want to be reached out to, if they don't want that support, if they don't want the help, there's nothing we can do. So at this point, God told me, and even Jesus the Christ came through today, we have to drop all of our worries, fears, and frustrations because they're weighing us down. And God is kind of wanting us to be really lightweight at this time because we're going to be the first ones to move through this gate. And then the other ones, because we've moved forward successfully, they will have a better chance of making that choice still on the behalf of their soul, which is serving their highest good and their divinity, their illumined self, instead of the regressive type and the regressive nature that, unfortunately, as I have to tell you as it is, because I'm not a new ager, I'm a realistic illumined being who sees everything as it is, light and dark, and the interplay of everything that's in the middle, that's in between the space of duality. Because life is truly not as extreme as we see it to be. It's very complex, the nature of life. So when you read things in an illumined way, you will see things not always in such a bright light, but still you will have to have your ultimate faith in God. So what I've been now explaining is that this is a crucial decision for these souls, but the way we can assist them is focusing on ourselves. So in a way, those who are first have to kind of become very selfish, not in its classical selfish kind of way as we understand the word to be, but in self-serving enough that we can get easily through the gates, because a lot of us who were at the forefronts, we were very much obstructed. We were thrown bricks and walls and, everything. There was every single trick in the book used by what we call the devil, the forces of the dark, and the plotting and the scheming of the Antichrist forces that go against life, that are anti-life, that are not pro-life. So hence they cannot be prolific, if you know what I mean. There's no thriving if that's chosen. But the problem is with the souls that haven't chosen yet. These are the kind kind of like the disturbing factor for all of us. They're kind of keeping us stuck because we worry about them. And it doesn't matter what kind of being you are. We each have a tendency to love and to have an affection for someone who's still there in that between space, that still hasn't chosen. They're still fearing how life looks like on the other side if you just totally let go and you trust God, because somehow there's a program within them that they haven't even accessed yet through their own inner work, that they don't really trust God. Because, you know, when you really know God and you trust God, you know it's infinite intelligence, you will trust it, and whatever happens to you, you will let go. In the previous video, I shared with you all the challenges we've been experiencing in our tiny little family that consists for now, is just the two of us, me and my mother, that are both devoted to this Christ embodiment path. Me as an illumined being and her as my extension, but still, we've not been noticing much progression from many beings. Very, very few are moving through this gate choosing illumined union. There's many beings who have chosen what we call the twin soul or polarity union, but that's not yet necessarily the union at the illumined level, right? That's why I don't talk about twin flames as the ultimate, because it just represents the two flames trying to find that balancing and moving into purity together, and seeing the records of where they're being sort of distortions in their own records and clearing out those patterns. So I've always said my path is not the twin flame path, but I do understand it. So those who will move through the gate choosing illumined union are very few. I can literally name them, you know, in both of my hands. But there are many, many who are moving through this gate choosing union. However, there are also those who have, in a way, what I'm going to say now, don't take it so in such a faded way or manner, but they've in a way lost their counterparts, which means their counterparts are not willing to come through. And that caused a lot of worrying and friction around their own choice to move through the gate, which is happening now. The 8-8 gateway has been, since the dawn of time, the most important passage. For me, it's not even the solstice or, you know, it's always been about this gate. And there is a new agey version of showing us the importance of this gateway. And there's also an illumined aspect and perspective which deals with this union. And it's just being ready. It's not doing anything but holding the space. And so what I would ask you to do is just try to pick within your own self, pick up the energy. Instead of reading the collective energy, start reading your energy and where you are. And when I'm saying the urgent timeline shift for ascension, it means that many are in that urgent point. It's like that final call, which means it's now or never. And I don't want to sound fanatic, but it's just how God operates. Because if those few souls, which in this case it turned out to be many, because as I've explained in the beginning, because of the collective energy, it hasn't really been going well. You know, there's always the highest aspect of how things can go, the highest prospects, and then also something in between, and then the lowest. And I would like to say we're not even in between. We're somehow in between the middle and the worst case scenario, but we're still pulling through. The union will happen either way. It's just about how many souls will we pull through what we call this ascension gate, the golden archway of Illumined Ascension. So because of this, right, this urgency, there's an urgency now. There's also lots of procrastination. There's also lots of debilitating energies which actually come from the dark forces that keeps us or want to keep us stuck in 3D. In my case, that's why I was guided to share my story of how things went in the last 2 years, but especially the last 2 months since we got this house, this home, this temporary refuge space, and how everything was about just being physical and survival and dealing with very crass physical things, because that's where the darkness wanted us to be. But the light was also there, and the light took that as, okay, let's take that in, because there is no way of changing the path that the darkness wants us to go. But let's make this as a foundation. Let's make a foundation out of that, because being so much in 3D for an illumined being actually helps you in a way that was shown to me just recently, because it anchors you more firmly into the nature of the 3D, which means the more rooted an illumined being is in the 3D, the more their energy expands and reverberates through the field of what we call the lowest point of density, in this realm, which is, the spinning vortex, the spinning wheel, the matrix. So when you can hold space in there for so long, it will affect your body, and that's how it affected my body. But there was a sacrifice, as I've explained in Aurea's lifetime and her mission and her calling, that she held the space for so many beings that she loved so much, and all of life loves them, God loves them. But they don't necessarily love themselves yet. They don't necessarily trust themselves yet, because they don't fully trust the nature of God and know how incredible the very nature of God is, because it's the nature of God that kept me alive when I died so many times. And it was in the near death, like over and over again during the transgression period in years. Okay? So when you understand that ultimately when you serve God, God will do anything for you. It will give you, even when you're most depleted, it will give you the life force that you need to not just survive, but eventually when you move past the biggest hurdles, you will eventually thrive again. And that's how I was shown for Aurea. Her path will eventually become in the near future. But I'm not personally as Polona there yet. But what I was shown is when these beings don't trust God, they can't receive. So God can be there. God also is very much in the nature of, let's call it, writing out, signaling out, pardoning notices. I'm using the kind of like, how to say that, judicial language, because a lot of these beings, even though their soul is bright on earth, because of this heaviness that the dark has been doing, especially in the last cycle of life, which is, since the millennia, actually, since the year 2000, as you've seen, everything started escalating and spiraling downwards, right? Everything got worse instead of getting better and better, right? And we had less and less rights and more duties and taxes and things just going up very, very highly. And because of that, a lot of souls, as their physical human selves, felt threatened, and they just became a part of the system and the status quo, instead of keeping the faith in God, that whatever they will do, God will provide if they trust God. So in a nutshell, whoever is still fighting through the matrix does not fully trust God yet. And I'm not talking about what was done to us as Christ embodiment beings when the darkness wanted to push us at the edge of survival. Still, we were not rich or anything like that, but we always had enough to be maintained and to keep on going, to keep on moving. I'm talking about if you're on a verge of poverty or something that is it doesn't have to be monetary. Maybe you're in a relationship that it's on the verge of total destruction, but you're still keeping it, right? You're keeping it, trying to keep it alive, or though it's already dead. And there's nothing but the death energy there, because there's no expansion, no more growth. And your soul is like, come on, please, let's go. But the human is deflecting. It's like, no, I'm not going. This is where the trick is at this time, because these souls are also, because the collective was not expanded enough at this time, they're also pulling us, or those who are ascending, down. And it's kind of like, what I'm being shown now is God is trying to put this great scale of justice into motion, so they could be beneficial outcome for both of these sides, for those who want to move ahead in terms of counterparts and those who want to stay. But the problem is, as I've shared before, the 3D will not be the 3D we used to know it, like the 3D before the year 2000, before the Y2K or the millennia. It already changed. As you know, it digressed. It regressed tremendously. And we know about the Agenda 21 and the Agenda 30, which is, again, going to happen very soon. You know how years progress like this so fast. More and more, because the time is also fluid, and it's not the same time as it used to be. Those of you who are in the mystical nature of studying esoteric teachings, you also know about those principles. You heard them before somehow, somewhere. So you know that, okay? And what this means is that the 3D that will become, that it's in the making by those still claiming, not claiming, if the God, like it's always shown, is putting things into its creation out of clay, right? Then life force moves into clay. When those that are still shaping the very nature of the 3D are shaping it differently. And these are not light beings, because light beings have never created the third density. The third density was as low as you can go and was not created by the lumen light beings. It was the creation of the regressive types. It was a result of the fall, right? And ever since, we've been trying to get it back. And we've done that in many, many star systems, and it worked. But here on Earth, there's a conglomeration of things that still haven't been moved. Like, how to say that, right? I'm going to try to explain it in the multiversal analytical but also simplistic way and form. So if there was a progression into ascension in each of that star system, then the 3D of that system collapsed. It was no longer viable, right? Because things moved in and progressed further. And we know that as many, many star beings existing in other densities, their forms, right? How life is expressed in these densities. But each density had a leftover, and these leftovers kept being deposited somewhere. They needed to go somewhere, and this became the consciousness of the conglomerate we know as Earth. It's a melting pot consisting of several different types of star races, but usually, what people say, it's the prison planet, and it's the planet of the refugees and the rebellious types and rebellious souls that haven't moved along. And so those souls that haven't been choosing ascension and before are usually now the types that are still kind of resisting it now at this time when it's happening on Earth. But because they went through that experience so many times, it's more traumatic for them because they have this memory of being left behind. But instead of turning that over into gold, right, becoming a golden opportunity, because like it's almost like getting the divine rage and saying, oh, I've missed it so many times, I cannot miss it again. No way, there's no way. That has to become my life priority. It has to. Instead, a lot of these souls are actually keeping them stuck in victim mentality. And it's almost like the memory, oh, we were left behind. We're always the one left behind. I'm always the one left behind. You need to stop and you need to get out of that zone of victim mentality and start moving ahead. Because there are people who are in the ascension path that do love you. They want to move you forward. They want you to move forward. But you have to be willing to pick yourself up. And also, we've been talking about I think I've explained that before, the energy of regret and remorse. How regret is still a selfish energy because we're regretting a situation or something that hasn't turned out prosperously for you, because how it now affects you and you have a karma now from that experience. But remorse is like you're truly humbly sorry and all you want is to seek forgiveness from God, yourself, and those you've maybe done wrong. And remorse is truly an act of self-liberation. You don't need God to forgive you. You forgive yourself. You have to move through the act of and the principle of remorse. You really literally have to be sorry as hell. I can say it like that. And I don't mean it again. There's a term of being sorry, like being, victim, I'm so sorry, I would do anything. No, it's not about now you would do anything. No, it's pick up yourself, right? Dust yourself off and start walking the path now as if nothing of the before even happened. Acknowledge it. Take repercussion, right? Because everyone needs to take accountability for their actions and activities they perform under the dominion of God, because we're all existing under one same sun, the sun of all suns, right? The sun of all that is divine, that is God, the divine eye, right? That sees all. And it's like, then pick yourself up, right? Now take that shovel and start digging your new pathway instead of digging that hole for yourself. And this is where we are now, is a lot of these souls have this almost like a galactic collective memory of how they were left behind before, but it was their own choice. It was always their own choice. And the moment you acknowledge that, there's something within you that will be locked, almost like unlocked, and you will be liberated. That part of you that still feels it's poor and devastated and it's not for me, you're very self-conscious and your self-confidence is very much on the down low and you just can't seem to move ahead, and you say, well, that's all there is for me, that's all I can create for myself. And this is where we find ourselves to be now. And me, myself, the much I can do is Aurea's work of illumined light distribution, and me as a human, I can do as much as I can share these videos, but everyone will have to see which part of the consciousness they are when I talk about this, willingly but also truthfully address that for themselves and see, okay, what is then the work I need to do? How can I level up now? Instead of watching the videos about how energy will change and somehow I will magically change somehow because the energy changed, and the energy of August is better than the energy of July. You know how many times I've thought this when I was still not fully my master self? Nothing ever changes for the better, except you mastering yourself as a light being within the dark more and more. And because you're going more and more out of that density, that disgusting old dirt, that's not even our original self. And why do so many souls defend this livelihood and the way of living? I don't know. I don't have the answer. But they're rigorously and very rigidly as well defending that with their last breath. But the problem is, as it was shared in that reading and what the information I also received, was that these souls that don't choose it now, when it's kind of like there were many cycles being complete before in many star systems, but now it's a collective cycle. It's like all 12 realms would shift, and it's a synonymous shift. That's what eventually that would unlock this ascension gateway, the golden gates of ascension. And so these beings, because they can't participate, they haven't done the clearing at all, and they have this last chance now. They will have to move through all the 12 again, which means they would have to have many, many incarnations again, but they would start with the most regressive type, which means they would regress back instead of evolutionarizing themselves back up, starting the evolutionary path of spirit and the spiral of ascension. It's very difficult and complex to understand, but it's just the nature of life and how it moves. And I know for many people, they cannot yet understand this, and you don't have to. All you have to do is you have to have your faith, all earnest loyalty and honest to God, understanding that God will have the last final say. And God has given this last final chance to many, many of such souls out there. But there is an urgency in shifting these timelines for ascension from the personal viewpoint and from your own inner work that you have to start doing if you haven't started yet. It doesn't mean now that at this Lion's Gate and this month now, from this new moon to the next new moon, which I think will be in Virgo, my sun sign, that you now have to get it all right and all together. All you need to do is make that first choice. If you're still in the transition mode, you haven't, decided yet, you're in the gray zone. And I know people in the gray zone, and I know people who don't even know they're in the gray zone. And that's the worst part, because when you do know, you have leverage and you have always things and opportunities. Just call them out. God will bring them to you. It's so simple. God delivers everything. All you need to do is make that first step. And remember, even in Lao Tse, or Tzu, he said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. And all the rest is laid out by the elemental forces that do belong to the governmental forces of God. It's all governed by God, even darkness, except that the darkness is so stubborn that it believes it's self-governing, and it's not, because at the root it was created by God, and then it chose to be the dark and to play that role, or to play for that team, so to say. But in its core creation self, everything is guided, guarded, orchestrated by God, and one and only. And if you haven't really gotten that yet, you're still in that gray zone, you haven't seen that even the darkness serves the light, and hence you believe that, oh, if I know that, not just know it intellectually, but you can really imbue it within your being, and you say, oh, if that is the truth, then why am I even worrying about anything? All I need to do is follow through with what my body desires at this time. There's also a thing of the body I need to talk about, because ascension is physical. We're moving densities, right? And it's not what people say to be. We're in 3D, but we're actually 5D beings. No. Eventually, the split will come to a point when we will split altogether, and those that will be fully ascended will not be visible or, interacting in any way and form with the newly generated 3D, which will be a lower form of 3D that we know it now. You have to be aware of that. And every time I'm accessing this difficulty of Earth and the 3D and all the challenges and all that the darkness has already created here, I'm seeing it as very, very dark. But in a way that was God's will, because God wants the darkness to experience its self-creation. And in many books, it actually states, in divine prophetic books, that even Lucifer is, right, in her downfall, and many other light beings that have fallen as well, they will be evicted, right, and moved into the desert. It's just symbolic. They will have to experience every single aspect of their own creation, backfiring upon themselves. That's why the 3D will keep getting worse, because the darkness needs to understand about itself and all that it's been creating, and it still continuously creates. Therefore, it's like, it's not an escape route, but in a way it also is now. That there is this urgency and need for the light intelligence to move back home. Will not automatically be 12D beings, There will be levels and progression, so there's no fear and worry. There's people who are fearing that they will lose their body once they choose ascension. And remember, in the wintertime, I've talked about it. I made a video about Aurea's ascension and how I will eventually leave. And many of you will eventually leave as well. We will all be leaving in our own time frames, depending on our own chosen paths and where we are in relation to how close we are to the nature of God. It really depends. We cannot collectively read that as an event. It doesn't exist like that. It doesn't happen like that. But you have to know that everything, that once you choose the light, and when I say that, I mean illumined light, not the new age false light. That's really just the dark, right? And it's many, many scheming ways of portraying itself as the light and putting out these false messages. They keep people stuck and on repeat and on loop. And you know, that Groundhog Day, that movie, the reality is every day the same. Do you know that movie? You know when the reality finally changed? When the main character has chosen love. Only then. So all you need to do is choose love, which means, again, it's a physical ascension journey, which means we're taking the body. It's the body that is ascending. Your soul is opening up to this path, and the body is the one that's opening up like a lotus, and it's beginning to ascend. And all you need to do is make that first choice. And you won't believe it, but many people believe they have because they've been mentally tuning into the new age, believing they're ascending, but they truly haven't subscribed. They haven't gone into their soul contract. They haven't really had that eye-to-eye, face-to-face confrontation with the will of God. They haven't. They've been picking up the light encodings that's the false light, that's an inception, and thinking, well, I'm already there. Like I said, it's the most dangerous path to follow when you believe you're already there, but you haven't even started. Because those of you who say, well, I'm willing to even question it, you're at least willing to question things, which means you will be on the right track. You will receive information, because people who are fully in ego and block everything out because they believe they already succeeded, the ego blocks everything out. That's what ego means, edging God out, like totally out. Okay, and I don't want to be too way out of proportion, but things are as they are. It's simply the nature of life. So you're not following through divine love, the law of love, then you're not following through your body. Each time you're choosing the mind over body, right? It has to be, we're needing to learn for our spirit to guide our body and our body to guide our spirit, because then the mind will be tamed. Most people who are in this verge and manipulated heavily through the dark, through their toys, schemes, electrical impulses, EMF frequencies, different frequencies, well, we don't even know the name of. Something has fallen downstairs. The wind is breathing heavily. The God is saying yes with, with our exclamation points. It's like the mind is being ruled over different frequencies that the dark uses to implement inception laws. These are tactics that relate to the mental distortion of the human psyche and repatterning of the brain signals. You know, why is so much invested in this field of science? What do you think, right? And how through wavelengths of different energetics, our brain work is being repatterned. Hence, you know, the other counterpart version, which is all these different frequencies, like I've been talking about through Patreon this year, not just solfeggio, right? But rife frequencies or riff or whatever you call them in English, I don't know. This work was heavily submitted under, put under the cover, and the person was left again pushed to the edge of poverty when he was trying to bring these frequencies to the planet. So much we can do now to discharge these energies. You don't need to be skilled at what we call the galactic pulsar of light, as these beings like myself who already know it and how to do it, and it's just planted within ourselves. But when we get to that next passage way or next passing point, I believe that Aurea will be the teacher of this pulsar for many beings who have moved and are moving into the ascension pathway and this template, this timeline actually. But unfortunately, due to the heavy manipulation tactics and many, many toys that the darkness has been developing since the Y2K and much earlier on, but a lot of it was given to them by the negative ETs or the regressive ET types. They've been plotting, and a lot of people don't even know they're receiving very low frequency emanations, and these are affecting their own thoughts. They're being filtered, and they believe they're thinking their own thoughts, but they're not. These thoughts are very let's say, either very stubborn or egoic, never change, never growing, never expanding, always the same. If your life is very repetitive, if there's no movement, there's no courage that you actually manage to indicate and show in your life, you've showcased that you're willing to show your courage, right? This new one, Leo, it's showing you that you need the courage to move through this gate, not just, oh, it's going to happen because we read the energy or read the energy report or someone has shared it online and it's a part of the New Age groupings. No, you need to show the courage now to step through and to step up and understand what has been keeping you blocked for so long, or at least be willing to understand. You're not going to get it all at once, not at all. It's a journey, and it's heavily shocking once you start exploring, wow, what everything has been manipulated. It's really shocking, to be honest, right? But you will take those steps. Don't overwhelm yourself. But this is where we are now. The reality of God will split those that do no longer wish to participate in the, the new reality, and those, regressing. And it will unify and unite once and for all that which wants to come together. And for some, it's going to be easier, and for some, it's going to be more difficult, right? But don't go into despair. Those of you who have these counterparts, just don't jump the gun and pursue the heavy energy just because you believe you need to save and rescue anyone. The last word, the last stand up will be by God. It will be God's choice. It will be between that soul and the God. Okay, so even us as illumined light beings, we cannot foresee, we cannot foretell. I cannot tell you which soul will, which won't. I have many, many questions myself. And this is where our own faith and our work and the deliverance of what's being shared here has to be loyal and faithful enough, and trust God that everything will work out in the way that God at this point can envision it and can imagine it. Even with the point of where we are now, right? I've explained we're not at the highest point. We're not even at the medium of what was originally intended as that design that's more favored. We're not, due to the transgression that already happened, we already seen and witnessed that it wasn't the most favorable outcome for God, but God needed to work around it, and we did. Illumined light beings, we follow through. We sacrificed ourselves, and we've dismantled a lot of that, which was super, super heavy. But we cannot dismantle the entire realm, because there is a nature in collective choosing for themselves. And the collective, as you know, consists in each and every one as the individual soul aspect, and the incarnation of that aspect that is now your human body avatar, okay? And so we're in a very mystical time. It's undecided. We're not going to know until the last moment. I just pulled this card yesterday that said only time will tell. And it truly is like that. But I have to tell you, those of you who've been regressed in any way from the outside forces that was not your own, case, for a lot of beings, this dark intrusion or the dark magic happens because they haven't made steps throughout last several lifetimes. They haven't made any significant progress. So it's, for them, it's more they're easily prone for the darkness to hijack them and, rule over their lives and always choose for them instead of them choosing for themselves. It's kind of like if you have a family name and family company that, every child is born into that family needs to become a member of that family business, and they have to inherit it and keep the legacy going. It's kind of how the darkness works. It's kind of like the mafia operates, and that's, as you know, very dark energy. But the light operates in creating individual queens and kings, individual sovereigns, beings who will choose for themselves, who will become a participant, an active member in its total participation with whatever they want to leave as their own human embodiment and legacy of that embodiment. Even the new body will get to shape for yourself as we're truly going to fully enter into the fifth density. You will get to choose it for yourself. It will be your own sovereign creation. And that's the beauty of creativity that Source provides. Darkness has no creativity left. That's why it chooses for you, right? You're being chosen on behalf of darkness. And our lifetimes have been very, very stagnant and just like keep on replaying the same thing. And sometimes even the people, the karmic people in your life that are very materialistic, only see this realm through the prism of material reality and physicality. They've been trying to navigate your life choices, but you haven't been willing, courageous, or stubborn in a good way to break free and stand up for yourself, then you won't. That's why you have to do it now, because everything that you're going to postpone for later, that later will not come, because we're at that crucial pivotal point. I've talked about the period of grace that was extended upon this point. These words are prophetic. This is how God showed it to me. What's beyond this period of grace, this year is so crucial. The next year will not be as easy anymore for those who haven't made the choice. They will start noticing the significant tower moments in their life, things falling apart, downfall, and it will be very difficult for them. But they've chosen the regressive path, and they haven't shown any willingness. And with their own stagnancy and laziness, they were also pulling others or their counterparts or the family members behind as well. Because you have to understand that the fifth density is the reciprocal nature of understanding unity. Every action and deed you do and send out affects the whole. And I know people who portrayed to be loving, but they never consider others. They never ask themselves, how does this word, how does this selfish action of mine, it fed me in this moment. It made me feel some sort of a thrill. But did I ever ask myself how it affected the other person, the other individual? No, they don't. They're not giving. They're not caring. But even those beings, I've pleaded for a lot of these beings to God as well, to kind of pardon them, because they didn't know better, because they've been stuck for so long. And still, God will make that final choice. God will say, well, yes, but they had choice. And over again, I've been sending them help and assistance, like including myself, for example. But they've always said no. That meant they're no longer trusting me. They said no to me. They did not trust they have love in front of them. They said no. They've trusted darkness more, and this is how God decides. It's not favoring in terms of, I love this child of mine better than the other. No, but that child, every single child creates its self-judgment upon themselves. If you continue to choose to believe and trust darkness more than God, that's the legacy you're leaving. That's what you're choosing at this point. So this is a huge breaking point for many, but it's also downfall for those who will not choose it. And we will see greater and greater division between us and the realm of what we call the 3D. The 3D is not necessarily at this point collapsing. The levels of the astral planes are collapsing because they are sustaining the 3D, because that which sustained 3D before, the nature of 3D has changed. Therefore, it's changed because the levels of the astral that sustains the 3D have collapsed. But the 3D is being rewritten into something else. All of our soul records have been rewritten because we keep writing them as we go along. Nothing is truly static, as we're being taught by this incarnation story. Yeah, you're told and you're moved and you're chosen into this life. You're birthed into this life, and that's what you get. No, that's the Matrix. Every life can change drastically. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie. What's it called? Oh, gosh darn it. It's one of my favorite movies because it shows two people that have been running from these people called the Men in Black, or people have been just influencing their life stories like they've been already written before, but they were rebellious and they started writing their own story. There was this couple. I can't remember the title of the movie now. Oh, The Adjustment Bureau. Have you seen this movie? It's terrific because these two beings were so courageous. They were told constantly on and on they're not supposed to be together by the status quo. They've chosen it. In the end, they met their maker. They met themselves. And they were told that only every once in a while there's someone who chooses to weave their own destiny and become divine in that essence, which they already are in spirit, but they're not living it. And they might not know the divinity for eons and eons and cycles of roundabouts, several roundabouts. And this is what these beings, especially in the union counterpart, that missions, they will keep on looping. They will keep on looping. For example, the one that doesn't choose, they will keep on looping and thinking about the other one, but it will be so and so terrible. It's going to get worse and worse. That eventually will also leave health damage and consequences in their bodies. Because God will try until the very last moment to awaken them. But for some beings, it will also be too late. Unfortunately, knock, knock. I don't want to say these words, but I've seen reality here as it is. I've been so enthusiastic throughout my entire life, but I also see many, many who haven't chosen it. Many who mock God, many who laugh God in the face, and they're portraying themselves as spiritualists. But when it's their time to act in accordance to love, they don't. Then let me ask you this one simple question. How is that then spiritual? If spirit doesn't move you, if the Holy Spirit doesn't move in you and through you, it's not spiritual. If you're willing to do like this, and you don't care what you do to the other, and you never even once in your life you apologize for something you've done, like truly apologize with your entire heart, you just said, yeah, sorry, go away, leave me alone. That's not an apology. That's running away. And many people have been running and running and running. And where are you running? Into the embrace of the darkness. That's what it wants. It wants you to feel you're this ignorant human stuck, always looping, job dependent, people dependent, codependent in general. And so far it's been very successful with a lot of beings because, as Jesus already told us, many, many have fallen into the dark abyss. Many souls have fallen into the darkness, unfortunately. And no one wants to proclaim that. And everyone is a dark sheep in that regard. But I have to say it because I see it. And I see how distorted people's frequencies and signatures have become since they've been enmeshed in this terrible game of darkness. I've met people years ago and their energy now is totally different than those few years ago. It's changed that drastically in the last 10 years. But some of you who've changed and started uprising and rising upwards and upwards, you have nothing to worry about. But you do also need to release any remnants of that worry over the people that you still love and care about. You need to trust God so deeply, so devotedly, that you know God will have its final say. And it's the willingness and the free will of those individuals that will choose through their own union with God. You can unify. You know, a lot of people expect union to be born out of two people. You can't have union if each and every one of those individuals hasn't been self-born through God, hasn't been rebirthed through the essence of Holy Spirit on their own first. You can't have union. You can't have illumined union, especially like that. So I had many people following me for years and never once stepped up and offering me something in return. Or, you know, people show up and it's all very superficial. It's kind of like, if I follow her, I'm on this path. No, my beloveds, no. And I've had people who've been like acknowledging me in my work, but never once they've made a conscious contribution, not even a few cents. Lately, I had to tell some of these people off and tell them straight. That's just not how things go. You have to show more than that. You have to show true willingness, respect. You have to show respect for the honoring work that has been done here, that's been playing out. And this is how we've all pleased God. We please God by our actions that are divine. It's not sucking up to God, like, God, choose me because, you know, favor me. No, God doesn't favor anyone. But God is being pleased by our activities of delight performed through love. That's what God honors. And God sees our spark going off. We don't need to plead to God or like ask. God sees our flame sparking up and getting brighter and brighter. So my beloveds, there's this urgent timeline shift. And my own timeline has been hijacked. As you know, I've been living in the regressive period, like very heavily 3D period for the last 2 years. But it wasn't by my own acts. It was caused externally. And those of you who have had experienced transgression, there was an external abomination of God through your own body. You have to know that God will still see you and the work you've done. Even if you're struggling, God will pull you through. But it's those individuals that have done nothing, anything, especially in these last lifetimes, that were very opportunistic for this final culmination. This is this lifetime now. In this day and age, then God will have a different choice to make there. But also know that for ascension, like I said, it's the body that follows through. You have to start listening to your body, not the mind. It has to be body being guided by spirit, and then the body in itself growing in wisdom, and body guiding spirit, body saying, Spirit, I need this, I want this. This is when the body becomes illumined. First, the spirit feeds the body until the portion of illumination is reached, that the body then knows how to consciously guide spirit and say, Spirit of God, I need this, I need that to succeed. Give me this. Let's do a pulsar. Let's move the energy here. Let's assist this individual. This is then what creates a conscious act of divine service. Okay? But there's no service in selfishness. So anyone who self-isolates, self-deprecates in any way, shape, and form, thinking, well, I'm the hermit because of that. No, no. A hermit is a divine seeker, not someone who self-isolates. I live on my own, by my own will and force of God within me. But I don't self-isolate. I'm open to anyone coming towards me. My energy is always open. Even when I myself as a human believe it's not, it always is open. You know, in that TV show, what's it called? Full House, they say, door, tick, 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 it's always open. It's always open. My hands are the hands of God, and my heart is the will of divine love, and they're always open. So, my beloveds, ascension is the journey that's physical. You have to take your body with you, which means you have to lead yourself through your body. Your body has to lead the way. So life force intelligence is the only way to make your body more luminous, more intelligent. I've been sharing the videos and courses and materials for that for several years. You've had enough time to prepare. The time is now. If you haven't started yet, choose anything from my webpage. It's just there, you know, for now. Start illuminating your body and liquefying your life force, becoming more and more like liquid light essence. And as you move along this path, If you're very dense and rigid and stubborn, your energy will get denser and denser at this point because of the split, because of what the 3D is becoming and what the fifth density is becoming. So the reason why, again, it's so difficult for many is because they believe that, well, the fifth density is not fully written yet. So it's kind of like a path of insecurity. Like, you're not willing to go there. That also, again, means you're not trusting God. So you can't go with that path because you can't go anywhere if you don't trust God ultimately. But if the trust has been laid out by the blood sacrifices of the darkness, that meaning everything it's been investing in this realm that we call the 3D, then if that's what you're willing to take, then go it. Go that path. I'm not judging anyone. Everyone will choose independently and individually at the end. But you have to lead yourself into this path of ascension with your body, not the mind. Don't listen to every single video, reading, or energy update you hear. Start working with the intelligence that's already within your body. That's what God wants from you, from me, from every one of us. And that's the reason why I've been teaching Illumined Life Force Mastery for all these years. The Tantrica Wisdom, all the courses are on my webpage if you ever want to. You can also pursue this path. In September, we begin again. And my page on Patreon called Illumined Ascension. And again, reminding you, I have a Telegram page as well. The links are down below. And again, Instagram, Polona, Aurea. I will love and leave you at this point. The only last thing I want to say is choose wisely and good luck. And as always, I send you so many blessings of love. Bask yourself within the light. Many of us have earned this gate to walk through because we've been going through many, many shadows of the valleys of the deaths over and over again. I've witnessed death in all of its forms, and as I was shown recently, I had to meet every single fragmented aspect of Luciferian's downfall or rebellion in my own self to address it and to embrace it with love, to create this ovoid of illumined light around it. And eventually this journey will be finished, will be complete. And I believe it's happening now with this gate and through this gateway. That's just for myself and my path, and I honor it. And I honor the information I receive. But a lot of information is not received as directly anymore. It's just like inside, internal, heart-based intelligence that's like all present, all-knowing self, birthed within ourselves and our bodies. And because our timelines, those of us who've been transgressed, have been delayed. For me, it's been 2-year delay. As you know, my own life, my own body, my home, my residence, or residency, my beloved counterpart who I was supposed to meet, all was hijacked. Now it's different. It's no longer the same. It's probably no longer even the same person. Everything changed. Yes, it changed. But remember, the light of God always finds a way for a lot of us. Keep the essence going. It's the essence that hasn't changed. It's the essence of who we are and our desire to ascend, how we wish to ascend, how we wish our bodies to be, how we wish to live, where we wish to live. A lot of us have been having these visions, but it's not going to happen in 3D until we're still here in this passing years. But these dream visions, very conscious visions, are very important for us. And when we dream and sleep at night, a lot of these guidance informational tactics are not correct because they do come and stem from the astral. So in your case, my case at least, I can speak for myself, I would question everything that comes through the dream plane, unless it's somehow very specific and you feel there was a highly charged potency and presence of illumined light there. Otherwise, don't think about it, because as I've explained before, when we see one portion of the dream, we have one segment, we have one tiny little piece, we don't see the whole, and we make a summation or assumption based on that, which we're not supposed to. As sovereign beings, we always have to look deeper. So yes, there's an urgency for us. I've been kind of, battling with myself and all that the dark has been doing to keep me stuck in the 3D looping and the physicality of life and dealing with physical survival needs and stuff. Been running so effortlessly to get beyond this point. And we've done our first segment. We've done our first portion. If anything super mega holistically goes wrong with the house, then it's no longer up to me. It's up to God. And I hope and I pray this will not be so, that we've managed to push through, that the breakthrough is coming. And I wish all of that and all of the light of illumined light the same to you. I wish you nothing but joy and happiness and the fulfillment of your own ascension plan. And as you know, there's many people on this planet, and there's only a few that are pursuing this ascension path. There's souls here for different various reasons. Many have just begun their journey, so they're younger in that nature, so they don't know what this is about. Don't think about them. They are where God wants them to be. They're that aspect of God, and just let them be. But where you are, what interests you, what pulls you in, what magnetically draws you in is where you are. And all you need to know is that you need to have the willingness and the love to do the work to pursue this path with all your faith, courage, and devotion to God, to yourself, as God. Thank you for watching, beloveds. Again, so much love was in Empower. I'm not sure if I will be recording in August, but with me, you never know. I'm full of surprises. And Aurea is always, she's left me speechless and breathless so many times before. If any of you wants to get in contact, do it through Instagram, but first you need to add me there. I need to approve it because it's a personal account, or Telegram, and I'll see you in the next update once you're past the gate. So much love, beloveds. So much love. Bye for now.